This is the Mooncast.
Well, can you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience? Let them know who you are and what kind of experience you have.
Yeah, sure. My name is Adebayo. I'm fine with that calling. But yeah, generally, my experience background, basically, it's like I have a bachelor's in cybersecurity. So I did that while I was in Nigeria for a 5-year course. Yeah, then worked for a consulting firm where
Hmm.
essentially my role was to sort of like audit and implement information security standards for financial institutions in Nigeria, which was very
Hmm.
interesting. I also did that for a couple of banks in Nigeria. But while I was
Hmm.
doing that, obviously, like there was this rave around cryptocurrencies. But generally in Nigeria, then funny thing was like the rave around cryptocurrency then was around Ponzi schemes, the likes of MMM and whatever. So there was Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that. It doubles your funds literally
Hmm.
every 2 days. I'm like, what sort of money doubles overnight? What sort of investment doubles overnight? And then I discovered Bitcoin, but I needed to know what was the technicalities behind it. So that got me into
Hmm.
blockchain, and then I sort of like just went into that rabbit hole, and I'm still not out of it. I'm still in that rabbit hole, obviously. But like I was sort of like already into blockchain. Um, and so back as 2016. And so when I moved abroad, I discovered like, oh, okay, I should be able to use this my blockchain skill set for something else. And then I went
Hmm.
into getting more knowledge around financial crimes and whatnot, took a bit of certifications around that, developed my skill set
Hmm.
around blockchain forensics. And so far, so good. It's been an interesting journey. Currently, I work as an investigator at Page 32, which is like a blockchain investigations and intelligence service. So yeah, it's sort of like a combination of using my cybersecurity skills, my knowledge of financial crimes and blockchain investigations to sort of like track and trace illicit activities on the blockchain. So yeah, it's an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Look, can you describe, because cybersecurity is so broad. So just for the audience, what is cybersecurity?
So cybersecurity is some people will call it information security. Some even call it computer security, as far as I'm concerned. But like I think generally there are two aspects to cybersecurity, and there is the regulatory, the policy, procedure side, and then the technical side of it. So the technical side of it is where
Hmm.
you find individuals who are taking courses around ethical hacking, who are taking courses around how to things around blue teams, red teams, or particular organizations, which is basically just thinking around how to defend and then how to penetrate a particular organization, a particular infrastructure, cybersecurity infrastructure. And then there is the regulatory and then the process side of things, which is just around policies and procedures around that guides an organization's approach to cybersecurity infrastructure in terms of like who needs to know what we do, what exactly are we going to do in some certain type of cases, what exactly are the procedures in place for when a staff leaves, how do we get some of our equipment with them back, all of those things. So I think generally it's in those two broad categories generally when it comes to how do you categorize cybersecurity. But yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, when you talk about the different type of standardized frameworks, so
Mhm.
you've worked with the standardized frameworks in Nigeria, and you're also working also in Estonia. Is that for like the entire Europe that you're working for in regards to the standardized frameworks, or?
So generally, I haven't practiced much in cybersecurity when I came to Europe, but like I think
Mhm.
standards frameworks are cuts across board, regardless of whichever country you're based in. And I think that's why it's standardized generally. So
Mhm.
it can be used anywhere in the world. And I think there are some very common ones, the likes of ISO 27001, the likes of NIST frameworks,
Mhm.
and I think those are the two major ones. For the kind of speaks around that has been tested over the years and speaks around what you need to do when it comes to cybersecurity infrastructures and how to sort of like protect, organize, or even implement a security framework in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When you look at the landscape of like Nigeria, would you say that they're, because you mentioned that with Bitcoin and stuff, would you say that they're
Mhm.
more Bitcoin friendly, or what's this sort of legal framework and the ideology there right now currently?
Uh, so Nigeria is an interesting case. There is no regulatory oversight for cryptocurrencies generally in Nigeria as of now. I think the last communique released by the Central Bank of Nigeria still bans cryptocurrencies. So, generally, in the eyes of the government, cryptocurrency is still banned. But nonetheless,
Mhm.
people are using it, no doubt. And I think it sort of puts a number of companies in that space or in that jurisdiction into a very interesting scenario, which is like they already have solutions or they have businesses that caters to Nigeria, the Nigerian community regarding what they do and how they implement cryptocurrencies. But obviously, they can't go to the government and get regulated because number one, they are all based, the whole product they are sort of like setting their own infrastructure on is not recognized in the country. So it's a bit interesting,
Mhm.
but yeah, I would say even looking at the last Chainalysis reports around cryptocurrency adoption across the world, I think Nigeria is second after India. So even with the fact that it's banned by the government, people are still making use of it. So it's a bit interesting. There is no regulatory oversight, no doubt, but Nigeria is growing when it comes to Bitcoin adoption. I wouldn't say Bitcoin adoption per se, I would say the use of stable coins, and generally that's like USDT. So you tend to see Nigerians using stable coins more for transactions across board or even remittance processes, or even to buy stores outside of the country and even to hedge against the naira. So you get to see more around USDT use cases rather than Bitcoin as a store of value.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the potential introduction? I guess that they've already introduced the e-naira, right? The
Yeah.
CBDC.
So
Yeah, and
the in-errors case is well, so the Naira is sort of like, yeah, it's from what I understand with the Naira, it's a cryptocurrency asset, but it's built on Hyperledger. And I think that's one thing which the should I say the public is not aware of. Like, oh,
mm,
they only tend to see it as like, okay, so every cryptocurrency that is out there have to be on a public blockchain, so to speak. Like, oh, where is your explorer? So some of the questions you see people asking is like, oh, you call this a digital currency, a sort of your own version of cryptocurrency for the Nigerian community, but where is your explorer? How do we track and trace some of these transactions? But
mm,
from what I discovered, it's actually built on Hyperledger, obviously, which is a private blockchain. So I think the way it was structured, I don't have much insight into how it was structured. But when it comes to the use itself within the community, it is very, very low. Except what they've
mm,
done is to figure out how to blend it with the current existing digital cash in Nigeria, which they haven't done per se. Like there's obviously transactions in Nigeria are very fast. It's almost immediately. Yeah, there are some infrastructures built around that with the likes of Nigerian interbank settlement system, which sort of like makes transactions very, very seamless. But when it comes to the usefulness of the e-naira per se, uh it's I can't see the effects yet. And the last
mm,
election, was also something that kind of like make that well known that like the Nigerian ecosystem around cash is it's not very interesting when it comes to the naira. It could have solved a lot of things if it were to be implemented in a better way. It would have helped. It should be helping, but nah, it's just one of those infrastructures, one of those development that you tend to like. Oh yeah, we have something like this just to check off the box and not really make use of it as it's ought to be used.
Yeah. Do you think, like, in regards to decentralized finance, that Nigerians, because I think I saw a little bit of glimpse of the interest rates, and they're quite
Mhm.
high if you want to borrow
Mhm.
money. So you think like DeFi provides a better solution for borrowing and lending in regards to how the sort of circular economy works in Nigeria currently?
It's I think with regards to DeFi and the Nigerian economy, it would help because obviously it will open up the Nigerian market um, to the international market essentially in a way. And I think one of the major issue that Nigeria is having with regards to uh, currency is unavailability of US dollars in the market. Essentially, there's like a very short supply of it in a way, and that is so it's putting a lot of pressure on the naira, and by putting a lot of pressure on the naira, it means the naira is losing its values because more people are looking out to how to get a US dollar to make international transactions. But I think a
Mm,
DeFi solution or the introduction of DeFi into that space would be interesting. But I think in a way it would have to be also sort of like regulated by the government because no government wants their currency to just be anywhere and doing anything in in the world without them having an oversight. So it would work, but I think we are still in a bit a long way from it with regards to the current solution that we have in Nigeria. Um, I think
mm,
once the community itself or the central bank itself finds a solution around how to reduce the pressure on the naira, which involves number one, people making use of the naira for transactions, or even creating rails that ensures that naira can be used across borders or even creating sort of things that we have on blockchain, the likes of bridges where you can easily convert one asset to the other across different blockchains. If we have something like a bridge that sort of like takes a naira from a Nigerian user and then make use of it, and then whoever is receiving the funds is getting USD or whatever currency is in their local economy, then that would obviously help. But I see that a number of countries within Africa are sort of like creating that ecosystem where you can send your naira to another country in Africa, and then the person who is at the receiving end gains their local currency. So there are those infrastructures being built now. But with regards to DeFi or even putting any central currency into a decentralized ecosystem, we are still a long way from it.
yeah, for sure. What do you think that, because I'm guessing the government entire their plan is to at some point phase out cash completely, right?
Yes, yes.
And when do you think that that would be, like, around the time frame in which you think that the cash would be completely phased out in Nigeria?
So currently, Nigeria has something called cashless policy. So, so the facing itself is more like, yeah, I'll probably say like, I think the cashless policy was something done in 2010 or thereabouts. So there is already a policy that guides less usage of cash within the ecosystem. And I think the way Nigeria
Mm,
is sort of like introducing that solution is around how can we, it's sort of like homegrown. So DeFi would work, the
mhm,
currency would work, all of those stuff will work, but essentially what would the Nigerian community be able to use? And if you want to make use of something that is easy and seamless for them, generally it is not cryptocurrency or it is not the way the current cryptocurrency infrastructure is being set up around I needing to understand what my private keys are, what are public keys, what are explorers, all of those stuffs, or make keeping a
mhm,
12 seed phrase into my brain or writing it down in a particular storage or anything like that. It's not going to work for an average Nigerian. And what they are currently
mm,
implementing around the digital solution or sort of like the cashless policy is like being able to make you users, or being able to make people use more of USSD, just being able to make transactions on their phones without internet, using short codes, all of those stuff. So that's the way they're trying to implement a cashless policy. So you tend to see most people sort of like making transactions on phones nowadays, and
Hmm.
just being able to send funds or using cards. So there is this new wave around usage of cards now. But I think the general populace, if you have a phone, you probably have your bank's source code on how to make transfer from your own phone to another bank account right where you are. So I think that's the approach to around a cashless environment currently in Nigeria. But with regards to how does that fit into the crypto economy or decentralized finance, or what we understand as blockchain, um, I think it's still a bit. We're still like a few years away from that, because number one, if regulation is not in place, innovation is sort of like stunted, and so there is nobody is
Mm.
actually innovating around. Oh, how do we infuse cryptocurrency or blockchain as it is now into the current cashless economy, or into the current cashless policy that has already been in place? So it's still like, oh yeah, let's get regulated first, or let's get this thing understood, or let's get it identified or recognized within the economy. So once we have
Mm.
that, then people can now start innovating around, oh yeah, we can actually infuse the current cashless economy into what decentralized communities will look like, just making it seamless for people who are transacting on blockchain and then transacting within their bank app. So like very seamless. So like you can't even see the difference. I think that's where it would work.
Mm.
But currently, I would say a few years from now. But yeah, there's a cashless policy. But it's still cashless policy, but people are still using cash. Yeah, Nigeria loves cash actually.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that moving into the cashless sort of economy would
Mhm.
hinder and sort of keep out maybe a large percentage of people who don't have phones or don't have access to internet within that sort of economy?
So I think that's one of the reasons why the mobile phone version of cashless policy became a thing in Nigeria, because like,
Mhm.
um, roughly, Nigeria has a very large internet penetration when it comes to mobile phone usage. Um, I think
Mm.
mobile communication came into Nigeria in 2001, or sometime around that period, like quite, I won't say very
Mm.
early on, but yeah, obviously from where it started off to now, I think we spent at least 20 years with mobile communication in Nigeria. So it has grown to a large extent, but there is still a very big community, or a very big percentage of the community or the country, that does not still use mobile phones for transactions or for any bank activity. They'll prefer
Mm.
to walk into a bank, get their cash out, give it to whoever needs it. They prefer to do that because, like, I think it's still all around their trust for the framework, their trust for the banks. Some don't trust banks. Like, they don't trust their money outside of what they can see, outside of what they can feel. And I think that's one of the issues around cryptocurrency also. I think generally across board, some still do not understand cryptocurrency as being a virtual asset. So once they can't touch and feel the money, they don't count it as valuable. So it's still an issue across the
Mm.
world also, obviously in Nigeria also. So it's sort of like, in a way that, like, I think generally for Nigeria to be able to kind of like cross that bridge of everybody is cashless, people need to trust the government bringing that particular solution out. And trusting the government
Mm.
bringing the solution out means, like, oh, it has to be a policy that another new government won't come in and then everything will change. It's not something that's like, oh, we change a policy every 4 years, or we change an infrastructure setup every 4 years, because, like, yeah, it's a new government, we have to do this in this way. So yeah, that's one of the issues, right? So, but with regards to like the community of people who are still not, they can't like call them unbanked. There are quite a lot of them, but there are different solutions even within Nigeria, with startups in Nigeria. So like creating stores around, oh, I can go to a particular community, collect their cash from them, save it as like a mini bank structure, and then give it back to
Mm.
them like a monthly basis, so like putting it into a thrift sort of like ecosystem, but giving them the opportunity to make use of it even on phones. Like, oh, you don't trust this bank? Sure, no problem. This is us. We are within your community. We visit you daily. We collect the cash from your businesses, and then we store it in the bank. We have relationship with the banks, but if you need your money tomorrow, just use your phone, make a transfer, it will get to whoever needs it. So those are some of the ways that people are sort of like innovating around people who are unbanked, and then or even people who are underbanked, because there are those who don't have bank accounts, and there are those who have bank accounts but really use it, like still stores their funds in the
Mm.
house and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a bit tricky situation, but I think people are working around all of those things to sort of like get people on board, especially with mobile phones. Mobile phone is like the number one thing around innovating into a cashless policy in Nigeria.
Yeah, makes absolute sense, man. Let's switch over a
Yeah,
little bit to blockchain forensics
sure.
because you mentioned that too as well. Do you have a lot of experience in that?
Mhm.
Can you explain what that is and why you got into it?
So blockchain forensics generally is it's you investigating, tracking, and tracing activities on the blockchain. So essentially, it doesn't have to be illicit activity. I think that is one thing some people sort of like miss out. Investigation doesn't have to be like illicit activity per se. You can just like be you could just be interested in tracing transactions of a particular entity or individual, or just sort of like seeing a pattern around something that you want to know. It's still an investigation. But generally, blockchain forensics, with the general idea of it is you tracking and tracing illicit activities on the blockchain. There are some very specific ones that are performed on the blockchain, which are the illicit activities, and there are some specific ones that are like the individuals use blockchain to carry out the illicit activity. So let me give you an
Mm.
instance. A smart contract arc per se is both off-chain and on-chain. It involves you sort of like rewriting or sort of like making use of some of the logics of the particular smart contract in ways it was not meant to be used for. So you could time as like, oh, an on-chain illicit activity, and then some could be like, oh, some people got access to the private keys of the holders of that particular wallet address, and then so like got the funds out of that wallet and moved it to their own wallet. So there are kind of like two aspects to it, but generally it's all about it tracking and tracing, looking for patterns, looking for uh, things that happens on the blockchain where you can easily just like trace and track who is performing one particular activity, to what extent is this illicit, is it does it involve you does it involve transactions with terrorist activities, or does it have anything to do with CSAM, does it have stuff with do with act and stolen funds. So it's quite a huge space. It involves a number of things involved in it. Number one, you need to be able to assure that the address you're tracing belongs to who belongs to that particular activity you're tracing. Number one, and then the attribution on that particular address is actually what it is. Like, I can't be looking at an address and in my mind I'm thinking it belongs to an exchange, whereas it belongs to an individual. That's
Mhm.
misattribution already. So those are some of the nuances around it. But how did I get into it? Like I mentioned, um, kind of like after my first certification in blockchain was blockchain solutions architect while I was in Nigeria. So that was just initially just to kind of like understand the whole frameworks around blockchain, what it's all about. Um, Bitcoin blockchain. I think later on, excuse me, later on Ethereum came on board, and then there was this ICO craze phase
Yeah.
where where everybody was creating ICOs for, oh my god, wow. Yeah, we've done so many things in blockchain. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was that phase. But like outside of all of those ones, like yeah, I kind of like after that my particular certification, I needed to understand more around it. I'm not
Hmm.
a programmer, so I couldn't sort of like venture into, yeah, I need to know how to create smart contracts, or I need to know how to develop or create a DeFi application. But I know that like I can do so many things within space, and I'm very, very curious. So like sort of like getting into blockchain investigations was more like, yeah, it's a square peg in a square hole for me. Cause like, yeah, this is where my skills fit perfectly. And so like leveraging the cybersecurity skills that I have on it. So like, yeah, actually you need more cybersecurity in blockchain investigations or even in blockchain generally. And I think that's one of the issues we still have currently with some of the food solutions we have out there. Cybersecurity is an afterthought for a number of companies, and it shouldn't be. So yeah, I think it was just kind of a square peg in a square hole for me. It's kind of like just moving over to blockchain investigations and forensics.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the biggest threats that you see in the cybersecurity landscape in chain analysis and blockchain forensics?
Um, I think so. The biggest threat so far, I would say all of the tools, the likes of Chainalysis, Charium Labs, Crystal, blockchain. There are so many of them now that I can't even
Hmm.
remember. There's quite a number of them, but like I would say the biggest threat now, which a number of those companies are doing, they're doing an absolutely great job at, is misattribution, because the truth or the ground truth of everything you build on a particular blockchain or doing investigations generally has to do with attribution. So it's the same thing we have in, like, let me say, the Web2 phase, which is like identity fraud. So
Mm,
when someone sort of like takes another person's identity and then is using that to carry out illicit activity, and I'm
mm,
tracing that misidentity as the real one, obviously the baseline of everything I am building is obviously wrong. So if there is a misattribution of data on a blockchain, and then you are tracing that particular attribution as taking it for what it is, as being true, then like everything else you're doing is essentially wrong. So yeah, I would say the biggest threat so far is misattribution. I won't say the biggest threat are the likes of like, oh, finding out how to trace through mixers. There are a lot of companies that trace through mixers actually. So yeah, I think it's a myth now to think like mixers are untraceable. Yeah, mixers are very, very traceable. So I sort of like think as to trace through mixers. Oh no, those are not traced, as far as I'm concerned. I think around like things like, oh, private coins or privacy enhanced cryptocurrencies like
mm,
the Moneros and then the Zcash. Yeah, those are still there. But the flip side of the story around privacy coins, privacy enhanced coins, is that there is not enough liquidity for them to be used for illicit activity. So
mm,
if someone asks an exchange and then still like a $20 million, you can't put that in Monero today.
mhm,
It's too much of volume to kind of like, oh yeah, it can't pick it up. And so
mm,
you need to look for a coin or a cryptocurrency that has enough liquidity. Obviously, the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, the stable coins, USDT,
mm,
USDC, those would be like your best bets. And with the way the likes of the stable coins, majority of the stable coins are developed, they can easily be blocked. The transactions or the those stable coins within a particular wallet address can be can be turned to zero, obviously, because based on the smart contract, it's easy for the smart contract creator to sort of like blacklist that wallet address. So they won't be able to spend that particular stable coin. So yeah, I think the so back going back to my answer, I think the major threat is misattribution.
mm. Okay, and when you look at mixers and you say that they're really traceable, because can you just first of all break down to the audience a little bit what mixers are for people that don't know what that is and why they're traceable?
So mixers are sort of like just from their word mixers. So essentially mixers are where individuals, different types of individuals, entities sort of like put their coin together. In a way, it's meant to sort of like break the chain of traceability for a particular cryptocurrency. Majority of those cryptocurrencies is like Bitcoin generally, but yeah, you have the Tornado Cash on Ethereum blockchain now. But
Mhm.
generally, mixers, what they tend to do is like they break the chain of traceability from the originating source to the receiving source. So essentially, if I don't want my transactions to be traced, or based on just the fact that blockchain generally are traceable, it's an open ledger, anybody can see any transaction. The only difference is you don't know who is transacting or who is making those transactions, right? But like the fact that I can see where this 5 Bitcoin is coming from and where it is now makes it a bit of like an issue for individuals who sometimes one they're interested in their privacy, and because they're interested in their privacy they want that chain of traceability to be broken. So some of them use mixers. So mixers sort of like takes different people's funds and then it's like, oh, it's taking your fund right into that particular mixer, it's taking my fund into that particular mixer, but my outgoing transaction from that particular mixer is going to company A. So instead of it taking my own transaction and giving it to company A, it's taking your own transaction and giving it to company A. But remember, your own transaction is meant to go to company D. So in that way, it has mixed the funds together and giving different people different assets and sending it out. So in such a way that like, oh, you can't really say who is making a transaction to a particular company or it's a particular wallet address without actually unraveling some of the mechanics of how the mixer has been developed to work in. So yeah, that's mixers. But generally, mixers are traceable once you understand the logic behind it. Um, so what I mean by logic is uh, they obviously they're programmed. So it's not as if like someone goes in there and then takes a raffle or a raffle box and then shakes coins together and say, oh, you take this one. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
not raffle per se. So they are programmed, and because they are programmed means like, oh, it's easy for someone to look at the logic of the program of how the mixing is being done to that sort of like taking it back, taking it like a step backward, like doing uh, engineering and this sort of like seeing how to unravel that particular logic. So let's say, for instance, the logic is for every 1 Bitcoin that comes into this particular mixer, I split it into two, 0.5 Bitcoin each.
Mhm.
Send each of those zero point 0.5 Bitcoin to wallet A and wallet B. That is a simple logic. So all I need to do as an investigator is look at, oh, I understand that this is the logic for splitting and mixing coins. So all I need to do is I look at all of the zero point 0.5 Bitcoin that has been splitted, trace them back and see, oh, where are they coming from? Then you can easily trace them back to where the funds are coming from and then where the funds are going out to. So there are some very simple logic of that nature, and then there are some very extremely complicated logic on how coins are being mixed. But I think now there are also the we are now at the point of where mixers tends to use the likes of uh, zero knowledge proof to sort of like
Mhm.
mixes coins, and I think that is where it gets really tricky. And mixers are I haven't seen I haven't seen a mixing solution that uses zero knowledge proof that you can actually trace through at this point. And because yeah, zero knowledge proof essentially means you should be able to lay claim to something without actually showing that it's yours, just by using mathematical logic. You should be able to say, I own this, but you don't have to show that. The proof that you need to show that you own it is not essentially you showing that you own it in a way that's like, oh, I can see the goods in your hands. No, it's just for you to be able to prove that you own it. So being able to prove that you own it mathematically, it's what people can't do now when it comes to tracing assets through mixing solutions that are using ZK. So it's very complicated at this point.
Do you think ZKPs are the future?
Yeah, obviously. I don't think just for mixing. I think not. I don't think just for mixing. Even things around identity, identity verification, or even just every sort of use cases that needs a bit of privacy. You should. ZK is obviously going to be a big thing. It is a big thing already. But I
Mhm.
think the issue around ZK now is how to implement it in such a way that it is very, very seamless
Yeah.
for people to make use of. Like, yeah, there is, so there is I think it's just all forms of technology solutions kind of like their faces. There is the face of, there is the mathematical proof to it. Like, yeah, mathematically this thing can be done. And then there is the part of taking the mathematics into a solution, program it into a solution that works. And then taking the program solution into something that is very seamless for people to use in such a way that all they need to think about is click and go. And so
Mhm.
I think at this point, the phase we are still at is taking those mathematical solutions to work in a technology, in a program. So most people are not yet working around, oh, how can we take this program to be very, very seamless that people won't even understand that they are dealing with CK or won't even know that they are dealing with blockchain. So I think we are yet to get there, but we are still like in that mathematical solution to a program phase.
Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling is something that will not just challenge your perspective, but also touch your heart and soul. It's a book that defies convention, blending art and literature into a thought-provoking masterpiece. A reflective piece of provocative art that tackles societal constructs from angles you've never considered. Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling delves into the very essence of our existence. It questions the technology that surrounds us, challenges our notions of beauty, stares unflinchingly into the eyes of death, and questions the boundaries of freedom. It scrutinized the educational system that molds our very future. This book is a journey, an exploration of shared human experience, and it's a work of art that refuses to be confined by tradition. It's a canvas painted with words, a melody of thought, and a testament to the power of creativity in a world dominated by algorithms and data. Visit moonboycapitalventures.com and get your hands on Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling today. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Now let's jump back into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look, so I'm wondering, are you leveraging some kind of software for like blockchain forensics and for like to trace down the mixers, or are you doing it just manually?
So you would need both actually. You
Mhm.
would need there are some blockchain solutions nowadays that um, traces through mixers.
Mhm.
And obviously the thing is like they're not open to even the general public. But I think so. So far, my tracing through has been using a blockchain analytics solution with a manual tracing. So it's more like, oh, when it gets to the point like, oh, this is the entrance into that particular mixer, what I tend to do is like manually trace through from that particular
Mhm.
mixer out. And then once I'm out of that particular mixer, continue my tracing with that particular solution. So
Mm.
it's a mixture of both. But yeah, I've seen cases where a blockchain forensic solution has been used to literally trace through and again just gets the result out for you in seconds. Well,
Mm.
seconds, yeah, in seconds. But yeah, obviously, if I'm tracing through manually, it takes me some time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I want to ask you about some of the chains that you've traced previously. Like, is it mainly are you Ethereum? Have you been messing around with like Cardano? Because it's different with the UTXO models and versus
True.
account-based models. Can you just a little bit break down the differences between them for the audience?
Okay, so I think so the account based model and then the UTXO model, like generally, like obviously, most people tend uh to associate the UTXO model with Bitcoin. Yeah,
Mm,
but it's not just only Bitcoin. But like the account based model are also like the easiest to trace through, like to you because you don't have to think about things of change address or oh you don't think so essentially change address is even another story, but like it's a way where you are for UTXO models, you send all of the assets you have in a wallet to another wallet.
mhm,
However, if you tend to send, let me say you have one Bitcoin in wallet A and you want to send zero point 0.2 Bitcoin to wallet B. What
mhm,
happens is that all of your one Bitcoin leave your wallet A, send zero point 0.2 to wallet B, and send zero point 0.8 to wallet C. Wallet
mhm,
C is actually a sub wallet of wallet A, so making it a change address of wallet A. So essentially, it's like you're making two transactions, one to this to the receiver, and then another one back to yourself. So that's the
Hmm.
whole idea of change address. But like uh, EVM based solutions, obviously generally the likes of or EVM compatible solutions or blockchains like the BSC, the Avalanche, the Polygon, the uh, there are quite a number of them. Like I can't even
Yeah.
remember some of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of those, even base, yeah, even the current base by Coinbase also, all of those
Hmm.
ones, they're quite like very, very easy to trace through, because like it's just account based. It's just what you need is what is sent out. It's not like it's using the UTXO model. But for the UTXO model, obviously it's still very easy because like essentially all you need to understand is like once you understand the idea of change address, you sort of like have easy access or you can like know what is actually happening. And then with that, it gives out a pattern. That's one thing that's a UTXO model will give you. It gives you pattern when you start tracing. You start saying if it's a change address pattern, you see it clearly. It's very glaring. So you get to see all of those things straightforward. So I think yeah, generally, be it the EVM solutions or EVM compatible solution or the UTXO model, like they're kind of like those are the ones I've traced. So, but the ones I haven't traced through, which I'm still looking for a sort of like project around that is Polkadot. I haven't done anything
Hmm.
on Polkadot. I was thinking Polkadot would be a very interesting case, especially around the subtracts and all of its sub
Hmm.
blockchains, the mini blockchains that makes up the big blockchains. So like,
Hmm.
oh, I should get something to work on regarding that. But I think generally with regards to every other thing, yeah, obviously the Cardano, uh, the bitcoins, the all of the other EVM compatible solutions, they sort of like have the same model. So in a way, it's easier that way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and when you look at because I read something online, I don't know if it's true or not, but I just want to know
Mhm.
because you're kind of in it and you do it more frequently. But is it true that social engineering is actually the number one cause for hacks in the
Yeah.
industry? Really?
Yeah.
Really? So it's not smart contract exploits. It's not. It's really people mismanaging the systems that they have in place.
So yeah, if you look at the percentage of exploits or lost funds uh, in cryptocurrencies so far, even like let's sort of like break it down into different categories. So let's talk about smart contracts acts.
Hmm.
Smart contracts acts generally, yeah, a few number of them are based on the logic aspect, which is like, oh, people misusing the logic of that particular smart contract to carry out illicit activities. No doubt there is that nuance, right? And then the major part of it is usually people sort of like one person sort of like having like, for instance, a smart contract that is using a 5 of 7 uh, signature keys approach, essentially meaning like
Hmm.
5 people have to sign for a transaction to be made out of that particular smart contract. For that kind of scenario, you end up noticing like 3 of 5 that is needed to sign that particular smart contract is in the custody of one individual. So it's that I don't know. So if so if 3 out of the 5 signatures that you need to make a transaction is with one individual, all you need to
Hmm.
worry about is look for additional 2. So you sort of
Hmm.
like have this approach where you make an individual a target of act, and the target of hack essentially doesn't have to be like, oh, you're trying to hack through their system to look for it. Essentially, majority of it is social engineering. And
Hmm.
I was reading the other day, I think it was Coin, I can't remember, but it's like an Estonian based, I can't remember the name, CoinSpade. Yeah, I think it's called CoinSpade. I think they suffered an attack earlier this year or last year, and a number of I think like $20 million was sort of like um, hacked from their platform. And the approach was essentially like they sort of like sent them some form of business requirement questions around like, oh, we want to partner with you guys. So send us what your infrastructure looks like, all of those things. So in doing so, you're literally giving technicalities around how your infrastructure is built. So it's the first stage of of hacking. It's the first stage of penetration testing. You do reconnaissance. So reconnaissance essentially is like knowing what infrastructure or what is how a system is being created, what are the loopholes that you can think of, what are the things. So by the time that they're giving them, oh, we have this structure, we have that dot structure, we have this structure, you're literally telling them like, oh, these are some of the things we have, but you're not telling them these are the loopholes, but they already know the loopholes. Like, oh, if we combine A plus B plus C on these different structures together, we should be able to get access to the system. So yeah, a number of them is social engineering, and that is just even on the technical side of things. When it
Mm,
comes to like the ones that are not technical, the likes of investment schemes, the likes of romance scams, pig butchering, it's also a form of social engineering, because what eventually happens is you are convincing someone that they are investing in certain type of securities or a certain type of investment, whereas there is that investment doesn't exist in real world. It's
mm,
just it's just a facade of a dashboard that shows that their assets is sort of like multiplying over time. So it's a
mm,
form of social engineering also. So generally, social engineering is it's one of the biggest issues we have so far in cryptocurrency, because obviously even on the technical side, there's social engineering. On the general side, people just interacting with other people, there's social engineering. So yeah, I think generally, like even removing cryptocurrency and blockchain out of the picture, the easiest way to get access to any system is social engineering,
mm,
be it Web 2, Web 3, even in physical world, is social engineering. People, because people tend to trust. It's in our nature to trust people. It's in our nature to assume people will do the right thing. So, like, yeah,
mm.
obviously, you have to give people a chance. Like, yeah, he or she's going to do the right thing, and then yeah, you get social engineered by doing that. So yeah, it's a very big problem. Well, I think our solution is going to be people getting to know more about these things,
Mm,
getting to know about this type of scenarios, how this thing occurs, all of those stuff. That's easily one of the best way for us to kind of like mitigate. I won't say eradicate, because you can't eradicate social engineering. So like mitigate or reduce the effect of social engineering in both Web 2 and Web 3.
amazing, amazing. Yeah, well, in regards to education in chain analysis and blockchain forensics, where
Mhm.
if you're young, inspiring, and you're trying to get this sort of education information, where do you think the best way to get it from? Because how did you learn specifically, and where do you think
So
the best outlets are to learn?
okay, so generally, I would say before you double into the analytical parts of blockchain, generally, be it forensics or just you getting out patterns of which account you need to follow to make investments decisions. Before you even do any of those things, understand blockchain,
Mm,
and don't confuse cryptocurrency for blockchain. Don't mix it up. So just do
mm,
the general understanding, like what are cryptocurrencies generally? There are the stable coins, yeah, there are the privacy enhancement coins, yeah,
mhm.
definitely. There are the other crypto assets, there are the tokens, know the difference between a token and a coin, know all
Yes.
of those things. So
Mm,
like once you understand that baseline, you can build on that, because and the easiest way to build on it, obviously, once you understand some of those baselines, like so the likes of Chinese Time Labs, they have their courses where, especially if you want to learn about blockchain analytics and investigations, you can do that by just like picking up courses of their platforms.
what's the
And I
name of
think
this?
this. So there is Chainalysis itself as Chainalysis
Mm,
Academics, and then
mm,
Academy rather, and then there is TRM Labs, that's TRM Labs.
yeah.
So there is TRM Labs also, who also gives out their own training, and I think For Chainalysis is more focused on how to use their tools. Their React. So they have two major tools: the Reactor, which is used for tracing and tracking, and then they have the KYT. So the KYT essentially is used by organizations or exchanges. So it's KYT means know your transactions. So it gives them kind of like a broad overview. It's more like a transaction monitoring solution, pure and
Okay.
simple. So there is that. So some of Chinesi's courses are more in line with how to use their tool, how to use their tool for blockchain investigations, how to use their tool for transaction monitoring. That's and then for TRM Labs is a bit of tool agnostics. So regardless of whichever tool you are using, you should be able to do whatever we are doing anywhere you find yourself or whichever
Mm,
company you find yourself that is involved in cryptocurrency activities that need some form of tracing or tracking. You can use China Lab. So they kind of like make it block. So they are training are sort of like blockchain agnostics, but there are bits and parts of it that you would need to use it too, obviously. But like generally, they kind of like focus more on just teaching how you can trace and track cryptocurrencies without depending on a particular tool very so often. So yeah, these are the two major ones for analytics. Yes, for I would say for just how it relates to financial crimes, there is ACFCS. There is a certain certification on ACFCS that deals with financial crimes and cryptocurrency. I can't remember its name now. And then there is ICA. So ICA is, I think, it's International Compliance Association. So they have their own sort of like training also that deals with blockchain crimes. So ACFCS is Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists. Yeah, I think that's the full meaning of that. So those are like the major four are probably that I have used. So like obviously there are a lot out there, but that I have used, those are like the major four.
Yeah. Would you say that it's cost? What's the cost usually for those?
So yeah, s- cost is debatable. But I think majority of them are sort of like below $1,000. A day? I can't remember, but I think majority. I think majority. So like when my first course with Chainalysis was obviously less than 1,000. I think the second one was less than 1,000, but I think I did one that was above $1,000. But
Mm,
yeah, yeah, they're not that cheap. If you have to put $1,000 into context of average spending, yeah, they're not that cheap. But I would assume there are opportunities for individuals or businesses to sort of like negotiate on price one,
mhm,
or even for like I know there are the likes of TRM Labs. Yeah, I just remember the likes of TRM Labs is giving law enforcement agents around the world,
mm,
regardless of whatever jurisdiction you are in, to take their courses for free or maybe like
mm.
at a reduced rate. But like it's more like take it for free or at a very, 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 very ridiculous price that is like you can easily pay it off by yourself, something of that nature. So they have
Yeah.
that solution in place. So yeah, there are some of those like um packages for government officials or maybe like I would assume there are stuff like that for schools also. Maybe like a university system as like, oh, we are big on
Mhm.
blockchain. We just want our students to know so I give them some form of leverage before they get into the world on how to find the right job. Yeah, just give them. I would assume there are some of those stuff, but yeah, I'm very sure I know of TRM Labs and their solution around law enforcement agents and then taking some free courses on their platforms or even giving them access to their tool for free or in return for some other stuff, which I don't think I'm not sure of how it works, but yeah, there are some of those packages for those government agencies.
Would you say that TRM Labs would be the number one starting point for somebody who's trying to get into blockchain forensics?
Uh so they both. So TIM Labs, and I actually have a write up on this on my LinkedIn around the usefulness of the tool. Like I think I
Mhm.
mentioned a number of tools, but talking about access points to any of these blockchain analytics tool. So far, for now, I am aware that I think it's called ARCAMS. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Is ARKHAN.
Mhm.
Is kind of like democratizing blockchain investigation. So you kind of like have access to their tool for free.
Mhm.
And so they are a very interesting tool, very data oriented. I've used it a couple number of times, but there are still some other stuff they can do better, obviously, in terms of how the UX looks like when it comes to the tracing itself, or what
Mhm.
you're even tracing through. So there is that for free. If you don't have, you don't even have to pay anything. The only thing you need is just log in with your email address, and you'd have access to it. There is that, but when it comes to like you not getting something that you have to pay for of that nature, I would say yeah, probably you should go with CRM Labs because of it being uh, tool agnostics, right? Because
Mhm.
you want a knowledge you can take and pass across to, you can use in whatever scenario you find yourself.
Mhm.
One issue, because yeah, it's actually one of the problems I actually faced also. Because like my first instance to blockchain analytics was Chainalysis,
Mhm.
and I'm very proficient. I'm very good at it. But the moment I picked up TRM Labs for the first time, it took me a while to sort of like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
and and this was after years, like this was like after 3 years of me using Chainalysis. So
Mhm.
like it's not as if like I don't know what's going on. Like I could see address, I could see all of those notes, all of those things, but like how does this work? But yeah, so it those kind of like siloed approach to blockchain analytics is obviously an issue. But I think if you're looking for something that you can easily pick up without a tool, yeah, probably you should go for a TRM Labs course first. And then if you
Mhm.
now need something specific, because those tools actually have their strengths and weaknesses. So for if you're looking for the best attribution in Bitcoin, stick to Chainalysis. Yeah. If you're looking for the best representation of smart contract activities, stick to TRM Labs. So you have some of those nuances on what their tool is used for, or how it represents some of those data on their platform. So yeah, you have some of those nuances. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't know what the cost of TRM Labs courses are, but like yeah, I would assume even on course it probably is a bit cheaper compared to Chainalysis. I would assume it is. But if you're looking for something you just need like, oh, I don't want to be tied down to a particular tool, yeah, Serum Labs will probably be the best option.
Yeah. When you look at certificates, what are the main certificates you see in the job market for, blockchain forensics currently?
So generally, there is obviously there is the CRC, which is Chainalysis Reactor Certification. So
Mhm.
essentially, it's just how to use Chainalysis Reactor solution,
Mhm.
how to use it to track and trace. Yeah, purely
Mhm.
simple. There is that. There is a general one also around financial crimes, understanding financial crimes from a from a traditional point of view, and then sort of like bringing that skill set from the traditional point of view to the Web3 front, right? You need to understand money laundering. You need to understand all of the terminologies in financial crimes. Because obviously, the end goal of illicit activity or illicit movement of funds is financial crimes. The only way you can sort of like prosecute those particular cases in court is to sort of like tie them to financial crimes, more or less.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you need to understand what financial crimes is all about. So the likes of ACFCS, ACAMS, ICA, those are like the three major financial crimes training or certifications that you can sort of like get. But when it comes to specifics of blockchain analytics or getting a job as a blockchain investigator or blockchain forensics or blockchain intelligence expert, then you can now start looking for things like CRC by Chainalysis or even TRM ACI. I think it's called Advanced Certified Investigator or something of that nature. Then so those are the two starting points generally. Then if you once you kind of like figure those ones out, you can go for the advanced ones. So there is an advanced investigation specialist certification by Genesis. I think it's CISC. You can go for that one, or I think there's another one also, kind of like uh, a TRM version of that CISC also. But like entry points obviously is CRC or TRMACI, and then a bit of financial crimes knowledge generally. That would help.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely get those links from you so I could put them in the description for people that are
Sure,
very, very much interested in this.
sure,
So, and
definitely.
my final question for you is
Mhm.
about the opportunities in the landscape in the blockchain forensics market specifically. Do you see it growing? Do you see that there's a lot of opportunities, large demand, or do you see the demand sort of decreasing? Are they okay taking entry level, or do you need to have some kind of level of expertise, experience at an intermediate level? How does that look like?
So first question, there are a lot of opportunities, a whole lot of opportunities. However, there is something around those opportunities within the space, and that is the market cycle itself. When
Mm,
there is a bull market, you tend to see a lot of companies onboarding, employing a lot of blockchain compliance experts, right? When there
mhm,
is a bear market, you tend to see a lot of them laying off. And it
mm,
has happened a couple number of cycles so far, right? So there is that sort of like dynamics to the market itself, one. But outside of that, some companies are very well open to onboarding or kind of like employing starters or people with zero knowledge in the space. I've worked with companies that's like they don't even want you to, not like they don't want you, like they can obviously employ someone who does not even understand anything around about cryptocurrency. I've been on
mm,
calls with some of my colleagues in the past, and they were even like their first understanding of cryptocurrency or first thing about cryptocurrency was when they joined this company, and that was
mm,
like wow, really interesting. So yeah, so there is that opportunity for people like, oh, I don't know anything about cryptocurrencies yet, but yeah, I would love to learn, I would love to know more about it, I would love to know more about this space. And then you showing that passion, or like, oh yeah, I don't know much about it, but I've learned this is what cryptocurrencies are about, or this is what blockchain is like, or this is how it happens, or even being able to relate what you are doing in the past and then relating it to what currently exists in the blockchain. If you're like, oh, you're interested in compliance generally, like you've worked as a compliance officer of something of that nature within the traditional financial space, you can obviously bring those skill sets onto the blockchain space. And then, like, yeah, I worked as a compliance officer, a compliance analyst, or a compliance expert in a bank. Yeah, I understand how money laundering works, I understand how money mules work, I understand how all of this thing works, right? So you can bring those skill sets on the blockchain, no doubt. So there are companies who are willing to sort of like give individuals who have like zero knowledge or the bare minimum knowledge an opportunity to kind of like explore and then get more knowledge in the space. There is that. But uh, as much as the sort of like the roles become more specialized, you definitely need some form of experience and expertise in the space. Um, if you're going for like a senior analyst or something of that nature, or a mid-level role, you should. Some of the things they would even expect you to know is to be able to use the likes of Chainalysis, Elliptic, or Time Labs, even at
mm.
the point of applying. So if you don't have all of those, they probably won't even consider you. So there are those sort of like nuances. But with opportunities, there are quite a number of opportunities. That's even like on centralized exchanges. If you're thinking of like decentralized platforms, you don't even need to sort of like go for some of those certifications I've mentioned. If you're a programmer, you can literally learn how to audit smart contracts, like how to look for
Mhm,
loopholes in smart contracts and then audit them. There are a lot of people on Twitter who sort of like just a year ago they just like, oh, I need to know how to audit smart contracts, and boom, they are doing it without even certifications. It takes a lot of like practice, just looking at different smart contracts, looking at reading a lot of white papers. Obviously, you have to do that,
Mhm.
and so like understand what each logic or what each smart contract is doing, and how does it relate to the entire market. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. The space is still growing, as far as I'm concerned. We are not there yet at all. We are not, but there are still so many use cases that is still going to come into the foray. And yeah, the space is growing. If you are interested in compliance, please jump in. We need a lot of hands in blockchain compliance space.
Mm. Awesome, awesome. And in regards to, I said that was the final question, but I have one more now.
No problem.
And so before we go, I just want to ask you, okay, in terms of salaries, what do you think that people can expect from an entry level to a mid-tier level to a high senior executive level?
So for entry level, it's not the same across board or even across companies.
Mhm.
You tend to see some companies paying by location.
Mm.
And that means if you're based in APAC, definitely, not probably, you definitely receive a lower compensation compared to someone based in the US,
Mhm.
even for the same level. If you're living in Eastern Europe, you tend to see someone gets paid a lower compensation compared to someone living in, let's say, Germany or
Mhm.
Netherlands. So
Mhm.
you have those differences. There are some companies that do pay by location, and there are some companies that, regardless of wherever you are based in the world, we are employing you for a certain level, then would expect everybody in that particular level to get paid the same thing. So
Mhm.
on those cases, you tend to see like an analyst role around, like I would say a minimum of, and it, yeah, I would say a minimum of 40, but it's not cast in stone.
Mhm.
For like compliance analyst, junior, the most junior role, like you see probably like a 40K per year, and that can grow to like 120K per year. But when it's getting to around 120K, you're already looking like at a mid senior role for
Mhm.
compliance roles. I think like, yeah, you should be, depending on how big the company is also, like you probably see something around like 250K for like a managerial role, for the big companies. And I think some of those companies also kind of like tell you what they are willing to pay for a certain role during the application process. So you get to see it when you're applying. They're like, yeah, for this role we are considering this range, right? Stuff like that. So yeah, but I think 40K will probably be like the most. I'll probably say the least competition I've seen for like a junior role.
Yeah.
And also, thinking about it now, is based on the company. The same role in another company can have a starting point of around 60, 70K. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like it varies by location, varies by the size of the company, yeah, varies by location, varies by the size of the company. I think those are the two major factors that sort of like determines what you're being paid. Yeah,
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah. And you mentioned NIST. I know I just said that it was the final question, but you you mentioned frameworks and compliance. So you
Mhm.
speaking specifically more about NIST?
So frameworks in compliance, generally with cybersecurity, there is 27,001 and then there is NIST, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, um, so far there are a number, but they're not that big, specific standards that speaks to cryptocurrency companies. I know of C4. I think it's called CCSSA. So I think that's cryptocurrency security standard. Yeah, there's cryptocurrency security standard by C4. They are interested in a standard approach to sort of like securing wallets, or how exchanges create their wallets and how transactions are being done from that particular wallet outside. Essentially, they are all interested in how to secure the cryptocurrency aspect of cybersecurity when it comes to an exchange.
Mhm.
So they are not calling themselves as a full stretch standard. Rather, they are saying this is an add-on to your already existing NIST framework or ISO 27001 framework that you've already implemented in such a way that you are using this particular CCSS to address the blockchain aspect of that particular standard of that particular standard essentially. So it's like I'll call it an add-on. So there are some of those like add-on standards that you need within the cryptocurrency space. Yeah, C4 is one. I know that I know there's one coming from ISO also. So there are quite a number of them, but they are not. I think majority of them, all of them so far, are still sort of like running after first mover advantage. So they're trying to see who gets to the market first, because essentially, yeah, who gets to the market first gets the most noise in most
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's it. That's like the phase we are now in with security regarding blockchain solutions. Yeah, there is no specific one that speaks to anything particular, but everybody's just trying to look at what will work best.
Yeah, makes sense. It's weird because a lot of people think that you need to have a high level of coding knowledge to be able to get into cybersecurity, and
Nah,
obviously there's so many different niches. Yeah, you can
true.
speak to it yourself, right? Yeah,
Nah.
yeah.
Like there are quite a number of people, I included. Like I'm not a fan of coding, and it's not like I can't roll up my sleeve and code, but
Hmm.
I prefer to see how I can break a code more than how I can build something with a code. So, and
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things that kind of like got me interested in cybersecurity. Like I prefer to be on a red team. Like, how can I break this thing? How can
Yeah.
I break this thing? Yeah, right. So, and also that's sort of some of the things like, yeah, you don't need to know how to code to be in cybersecurity. There are so many different aspects of cybersecurity that has nothing to do with coding. Even
Hmm.
training alone would go a long way. Being able to
Hmm.
train people, like just the normal things like, yeah, don't share your passwords, use a password manager, don't use the same passwords across platforms. When you're not sure of the link, don't click on it. Some of those stuff, they are simple, right? No doubt. But a lot of people still kind of like misses it and then like gets them into a huge problem. Or if it's too good to be true, then it's probably fake. A
Yeah.
lot of scams out there are like that. Like a scam will tell you, yeah, 5% monthly ROI. And like, excuse you, how does that
Sounds
work?
like DeFi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does that work? So yeah, like if it's too good to be true, yeah. Sometimes some things are just like common sense. Does common sense means this thing can work? If it's not, then it's not. And if it's working, no doubt, like there are some cases that yeah, it's actually working. If it's not, if it's working, then it speaks to your own risk appetite. Are you risk averse, or what's your risk averse level? Like, I like, oh yeah, regardless of whatever the risk is, I'm definitely going into it. Or no, I prefer to be sure of what I'm getting and then get it in bits and pieces rather than just going heading all at once and then losing a lot of funds. So, but generally with cybersecurity, you can speak to different parts, different angles. It's broad. It's broad, and everybody should have an idea of what cybersecurity speaks like. Because in this world we are now, as long as you're on the net, you have a phone that connects to the internet, you should understand a bit and piece of what cybersecurity is all about, and that does not involve coding at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adebayo, man, I appreciate you for coming on. Where can people
Thank you
find
for
you on the
having
internet?
me. So yeah, definitely people can find me on LinkedIn, Adebayo Tiamiyu or Adebayo Gates. That's ADEBAYOGATES. Definitely, yeah, people can find me on. I think LinkedIn is still like my most preferred channel now.
Mm,
Twitter, I'm doing what I'm currently doing on Twitter is observing. I just read people's comments. I don't post. I don't do anything there. So yeah,
mm.
it speaks to my path of undercover activities also. So yeah, I'm on Twitter, but yeah, you can't see anything on Twitter from me. So yeah, definitely people can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my most preferred channel now.
Perfect, man. Damn, this concludes this episode of the Mooncast, man, and peace.